but she's going to need more.
The score was 6-3, 6-4. In Berlin. A few weeks later, the score was 6-3, 6-4 again. Different city, different surface. Same opponent, same winner. That shouldn't happen. Berlin was played on grass. Washington was played on hard courts. Yet Alex Eala produced almost the exact same result against Elina Svitolina. Now think about what that actually means. Grass is the fastest surface in professional tennis. Smiked are shorter. The ball stays low. Players who take the ball early usually thrive. Hard courts, especially under the lights in Washington, reward something completely different. The bounce is higher. Rallies last longer. Defenders have more time to recover. Coaches spend years teaching players how to adjust because what works on grass often stops working a few weeks later on hard courts. Yet Alex Eala produced the exact same result against the exact same opponent. So either she somehow got lucky twice in precisely the same way, or something inside this matchup is forcing the same outcome, no matter what surface they play on. That's the question worth asking. Because this isn't really another story about Alex Eala winning another big match. It's about why one of the smartest players on the WTA Tour suddenly looks uncomfortable every time she sees Alex standing across the net. To understand that, you first have to understand who Elina Svitolina really is. Most fans think of Svitolina as a counterpuncher. That's true, but it doesn't explain why she has spent more than a decade frustrating some of the biggest hitters in women's tennis. Svitolina doesn't overwhelm opponents with raw power. She overwhelms them with time. Watch one of her matches closely and you'll notice something unusual. Very few of her shots are designed to finish the rally. Instead, almost every ball serves the same purpose. One more shot, one more exchange, one more difficult decision for the player on the other side. The longer a rally lasts, the more likely her opponent is to force something that isn't there. A forehand aimed a little too close to the sideline. A backhand struck a fraction too early. An unnecessary risk taken simply because the point refuses to end. Svitolina rarely has to create those mistakes. She simply waits long enough for them to appear. It's a style built on patience. You could almost describe it this way. She doesn't beat players with winners. She beats them with borrowed time. That formula has carried her to the very top of the sport. A former world number 3, multiple Grand Slam semifinals, Olympic medalist, more than a decade competing with the very best players in women's tennis. Very few opponents have consistently found answers. Alex Eala is becoming one of them. By the time Washington arrived, Alex was no longer viewed as an exciting young player hoping for another upset. A few weeks earlier, she had stunned defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek on center court, proving her grass court breakthrough was no accident. She followed that by opening her Washington campaign with a comeback victory over Olympic champion Zheng Qinwen before eliminating defending champion Leylah Fernandez in one of the tournament's most dramatic matches. Each victory answered another question. Could she beat champions? Yes. Could she do it on different surfaces? Yes. Could she recover when momentum turned against her? Again, yes. Washington was supposed to be the tournament where reality finally caught up with the hype. Instead, it delivered another statement. But here's where the story becomes genuinely interesting. Go back and watch the opening games against Svitolina. Alex isn't trying to overpower one of the tour's best defenders. She's doing something much more subtle. She stands almost on top of the baseline. She takes the ball immediately after the bounce. She redirects it before Svitolina has time to recover to her preferred court position. That tiny adjustment changes everything. Every deep ball Svitolina hits is designed to buy herself a little more time. Time to recover, time to reset, time to rebuild the point. Alex quietly takes that time away. She isn't simply hitting the ball earlier. She's changing the geometry of the entire rally before Svitolina can establish the patterns that have defined her career. It's a fascinating tactical battle. And it explains why Alex keeps controlling so many neutral rallies against one of the game's greatest defenders. But there's one problem with that explanation. It only works when Alex is already ahead. It doesn't explain how she keeps turning matches around after they begin slipping away. And that's where the real story begins. Taking time away explains why Alex Eala controls so many rallies. It explains why Elina Svitolina struggles to settle into the patient rhythm that has defined her career. But it doesn't explain something even more important. Why does Alex keep winning matches after they begin slipping away? Because this isn't the first time she's done it, and it probably won't be the last. There's a second layer to her game that's much harder to measure. It isn't about technique. It isn't about fitness. It's something we could call scoreboard independence. Most players carry the scoreboard with them, lose 3 games in a row, and the frustration follows into the next point. Miss an easy forehand, and suddenly the next rally feels heavier. The pressure accumulates until the match begins to speed up. Not physically, but mentally. Alex rarely seems to let that happen. Every point appears to begin with a clean slate. That's a remarkably difficult skill to develop at the highest level because tennis constantly reminds you of what just happened. Alex has become unusually good at ignoring it. The evidence keeps appearing. Against Zheng Qinwen in Washington, she lost the opening set and quickly fell behind by a break in the second. Zheng's serve was dominating, and the Olympic champion looked ready to finish the match in straight sets. Alex never abandoned the plan. She adjusted her return position, stepped inside second serves, and slowly reclaimed control of the rallies. The scoreboard changed only after her decisions did. A round later, the challenge looked completely different. Leylah Fernandez wasn't overpowering her. She was overwhelming her with momentum. 5 consecutive games, a 5-1 lead. Most players would have started forcing winners, trying to recover 4 games in a matter of minutes. Alex did the opposite. She reduced the problem. 1 hold, 1 break, another hold. She refused to chase the scoreboard. Eventually, the scoreboard chased her go back another year. The U.S. Open against Clara Tauson, final set down 1-5 facing match point. The tournament was 1 rally away from ending, yet her tennis barely changed. She trusted the same patterns, stayed patient through the pressure, and slowly worked her way back into the match before surviving an unforgettable deciding tiebreak. 3 matches, 3 different opponents, 3 different types of pressure, power, momentum, match point. The same response every time. Alex doesn't appear to compete against the score. She competes against the next ball. That changes everything when facing someone like Svitolina. Svitolina's greatest strength has never been overwhelming opponents with sheer power. She builds pressure gradually, 1 deep return, 1 extra rally, 1 difficult decision after another. She wins because frustration accumulates. But what happens when the player across the net refuses to accumulate frustration? What happens when every rally feels completely separate from the one before? Suddenly, Svitolina's greatest weapon begins to lose its edge. The pressure she's carefully constructing never has time to grow. Alex interrupts the process before it reaches its destination. Now the 2 layers begin to connect. The first is tactical. She takes time away before Svitolina can organize the point. The second is psychological. She refuses to let the scoreboard steal time from her own decision-making. One player tries to make every rally feel heavier. The other keeps every rally feeling new. That's why this matchup keeps producing the same result. And it also explains why more and more players on the WTA Tour are beginning to see Alex Eala as a problem that can't be solved with 1 game plan alone. By the time Alex Eala shook hands with Elina Svitolina, the match had become about much more than a place in the next round. It revealed a pattern that is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. A few months ago, every big victory came with the same explanation: a great day, a favorable matchup. A surprise result. That argument is becoming harder to defend. This wasn't the first champion Alex had defeated. It wasn't even the first defending champion she had eliminated in recent weeks. She had already stunned defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek on center court. In Washington, she knocked out defending champion Leylah Fernandez before producing another composed victory over one of the WTA Tour's most experienced competitors. Different tournaments, different surfaces, different opponents. The results keep pointing in the same direction. That consistency is beginning to change the way the rest of the tour looks at her. For most of the season, Alex entered tournaments as the dangerous outsider. Higher-ranked players respected her talent, but still expected experience to prevail over the course of a match. Now, that expectation is shifting. Rankings are finally starting to reflect what the results have been suggesting for months. Alex is climbing toward the top 25. Not because of one extraordinary week, but because she continues finding different ways to beat different kinds of players. Against power, she adjusts. Against defensive specialists, she takes time away. Against momentum, she stays patient until the match changes again. That versatility is what makes her increasingly difficult to prepare for. The challenge is no longer figuring out what Alex Eala does well. The challenge is figuring out which version of Alex Eala you're going to face. And that matters because every opponent asks a different question. Svitolina wanted to slow the match down, extend rallies, and gradually build pressure. Alex found an answer. The next challenge looks completely different. Naomi Osaka has never built her success around patience or long exchanges. Her tennis is based on first strike aggression, big serves, explosive returns, and finishing points before opponents have time to settle into rhythm. She isn't trying to wear players down over 15 shots. She's trying to end the rally in 4. That creates an entirely different tactical puzzle. Against Svitolina, Alex succeeded by disrupting patterns that developed over time. Against Osaka, there may not be enough time for those patterns to develop at all. The question is no longer whether Alex Eala belongs on the same court as the biggest names in women's tennis. She's answered that repeatedly. The more interesting question is whether the qualities that have carried her through comebacks, momentum swings, and tactical battles can be just as effective against a player determined to prevent those battles from ever beginning. If Alex Eala's greatest strength is refusing to let matches slip away, what happens when she faces an opponent determined to finish points before that strength even has a chance to matter?